Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles. And today I'm going to do something that I haven't done in a very, very long time. I'm going to review a tank, and it's not going to be a brand new, upcoming, premium tank that Wargaming are desperate for me to sell for them. This in fact is one of the tanks that's been in the game a very, very long time, but for some bizarre reason I've never actually gotten around to doing a review of. The American Tier 7 medium tank, the T-20. I didn't really think too much of the T-20 when I first got it. In fact, I didn't think too much of the Tier 7 mediums as a group at all. Back at the time, there were only 3 Tier 7 medium tanks in the game. The T-20 was one, the Panther was the other one, and the Panther was, and pretty much still is, just a one-trick sniping pony. The T-43 is just not very good at all, and I kind of lumped the T-20 into the same category and just grinded my way through it as quickly as possible until I could get to Tier 8 and the very, very good M26 Pershing. But then the game developed further, and other nations were introduced with other Tier 7 medium tanks, such as the T-34-1 in the Chinese tech tree, which I actually really like, and the Comet in the British tech tree, which is fantastic. And it occurred to me that the Comet is actually very, very similar to the T-20, so I thought, you know what? A little older, a little wiser, I'll go back, have another look at the T-20 and see what I think of it in light of my latest experiences in World of Tanks. And I quite like it. The big selling point for the T-20 at the time I first started playing it was that it had what was arguably the best gun of any of the Tier 7 medium tanks, this 90mm gun, which you would also find on the M6 heavy tank at Tier 6. But it was that 90mm gun, the very thing that I'd looked forward to in the T-20 in the first place, that caused me the most problems with this tank, because it's a big gun, so it has a slow reload. And up until this point, my previous experience with American medium tanks, starting with the M4 Sherman and in particular the EZ-8 at Tier 6, had been highly mobile, knife-fighting, high DPM American tanks with those rapid-firing 76mm guns. Fast turret traverse, fast hull traverse, very good grunt in the engine, good mobility at close range. And that's not really what the T-20 is all about, because to counterbalance the fact that the T-20 had the biggest gun of any of the Tier 7 mediums, and today now has the second biggest gun of any of the Tier 7 mediums, second only to the T-34-1 in the Chinese tech tree with its 100mm gun, the T-20 comes with lousy damage per minute. It has a slow reload. And so if you were to get the T-20, for example, into a knife fight with a tank like the Comet or even the Cromwell at Tier 6, there's a fairly good chance that you're going to come off worse because the gun just does not fire fast enough. And I think this is why a lot of people really didn't like the T-20 when they'd upgraded to it from the EZ-8, because they were trying to use the same dogfighting playstyle as they employed quite successfully in the EZ-8. And you can do that in the T-20, and sometimes it'll work, because the tank's definitely got the mobility for it, but a lot of the time it won't work because the tank just doesn't push out enough damage fast enough. So how should you use the T-20? Well, let's take a look at the stats and see if we can figure it out. So we're going to start by taking a look at this 90mm gun M3. Now you can see two different sets of stats popping up on screen here, and they don't appear to agree with each other. The pop-up that you can see there in front of the tank itself are the base statistics of the gun. The stats that you can see over there on the right hand side of the screen are adjusted to take into account things like crew skills and equipment such as vertical stabilizers and gun rammers. So the base specs for the gun are that it has a rate of fire of 6.38 rounds per minute, which is pretty bad. But you can see with a well-trained gunner and loader and the gun rammer, we can get that rate of fire up to 7.56 rounds per minute, but that's still pretty slow. We have a 7.9 second reload time. The penetration, however, is pretty good, 160mm. If you're using premium APCR ammunition, that's 243, and it does 240 average damage. The base accuracy of the gun is 0.38, however, with a well-trained gunner, I've managed to get that down to 0.36, which is pretty good. It also has a pretty good 2.3 second base aiming time, but again, with a well-trained crew, that's now down to 2.2 seconds. Unfortunately, it's the damage per minute thanks to that slow reload. It only has 1816 average damage per minute, and that is pretty bad for a Tier 7 medium. One absolutely outstanding characteristic of this gun, however, is the gun depression. As you can see there, finally displayed in the garage stats of the tanks here in World of Tanks, the gun depression. It gets 10 degrees of gun depression over the front of the tank, and that is phenomenally good, and is going to come in very, very handy when you take into account the fact that this tank has no armour whatsoever. The T20 has 1100 hit points, but the armour figures are, well, they're a joke. I mean, this is not a well-armoured tank at all. The armour on the T20 was designed to protect the crew from the effects of 37mm, 45mm, and under the right circumstances and at the right ranges, 50mm anti-tank guns, and that is it. Anything else is going to penetrate this tank's armour like a hot knife going through butter. Hell, the Long 88 on the Tiger can penetrate the rear of this tank with high explosive, and would only need to get a moderately good penetration roll to penetrate the side of this tank with high explosive. Try not to get shot at when you're driving a T20. It will not end well for you. And if there is one thing that the T20 is better at than any other Tier 7 medium tank, it's not getting shot at. This is by far the sneakiest of the Tier 7 mediums. Of course, the T20 is no light tank, but it comes pretty damn close. It's got a concealment rating while stationary of 19, but more impressively, a concealment rating while on the move of 15, which is better than the concealment rating of some of the other Tier 7 medium tanks while they're stationary. This is a phenomenally sneaky little Tier 7 medium tank. Of course, inevitably when you're playing World of Tanks, at some point you're going to get spotted and you're going to get shot at. And when you get shot at, you don't want to get hit, because your armour isn't going to stop anything. Luckily, the T20 does have the mobility that you've come to expect of the American mediums, and then some. It's a 31 ton tank with a 560 horsepower engine, which gives it a horsepower to weight ratio of 17.94 horsepower per ton, which means the T20 is second only, and it's a pretty close second, to the Comet in terms of mobility as far as Tier 7 medium tanks are concerned. It has a top speed of 56 km per hour, but equally importantly, it will do up to 20 km per hour in reverse, and it can swing hull around at a rate of 39 degrees per second. All the kind of characteristics that normally would go into making a great dogfighting medium tank, if it just wasn't for that slow rate of fire on this otherwise excellent 90mm gun. That's what's going to get you into trouble. So, it's not that the T20 can't dogfight, it can, but you should try to avoid dogfighting with other medium tanks, because they're almost always going to have better damage per minute than you. Instead, use the mobility, which is fantastic on the T20, to dogfight tank destroyers, heavy tanks that have been isolated from support. These are the kind of machines that you can dominate with ease in a T20 at point blank range. Don't forget, it also has that fantastic 10 degrees of gun depression, and is a very small, sneaky and hard to spot target, so work those ridge lines. Finally, if you do have to engage in a close range dogfight with another enemy medium tank, try to do it when the odds are in your favour. You do 240 average damage with that 90mm gun. If they have 240 health or less, so much the better. Otherwise, you're going to have to start trading some of that 1100 health that you have. In all other circumstances, you can exploit the mobility of this tank and employ it as a sort of drive-by assassin, where you use that speed and agility to get up close, unload into them, and then get out of there before they can do anything about it. Finally, if you find yourself in the T20 on a team that hasn't been blessed with an overabundance of light tanks, the T20 actually makes quite a capable little scout tank. As we've already discussed, it's small, it's fast, it's got a good camo rating. It's also got a very, very good view range, with a base view range of 390 meters, although with the 100% crew and improved ventilation fitted, you can boost that up to 398 meters. And if money is no object, lash out on premium Coca-Cola consumables, give your crew that sugar rush, and watch the view range climb to over 400 meters. Recommended equipment fit for the T20 largely depends on whether or not you're going to play the tank as a flanking tank or as a sniping tank. In either case, you're going to want the gun rammer, because this tank has the slowest reload of any of the American tanks that come equipped with that 90mm M3 gun. If you're going to play the tank as an outflanking attack tank, then you're going to need vertical stabilizers and your choice between coated optics or improved ventilation. Alternatively, if you're going to play the tank as a sniper and backup scout and spotter for your team, then you're going to need some kind of optics, whether those are binocular telescopes or coated optics, and your choice between camo net and improved ventilation. Right, let's take this thing out and do some damage. Now that is some nice matchmaking. Tier 7 battle on the Sigfried line, Tier 7 medium tank. It's assault mode and we are on the attacking team. So, let's put that mobility to use, get up front, and attempt to get some spotting done. Initially I was thinking of using the good gun depression and just heading for the gate into town over there. and waiting to see who blundered into my line of fire. But then I thought better of it, and I thought, well, there's always somebody that you catch out of position up here on this ridge line. And then I realised just a fraction of a second too late that Cromwell just was not looking where he was going, and so, oh well, no harm done. Let's see about putting that gun depression to use. So, this is that 10 degrees of gun depression at work. There's almost always an enemy tank or two at the far end of this road leading up into town, camping around either side of the cathedral over there. Almost always, but as luck would have it, not today. But you can quite clearly see the gun depression is absolutely fantastic. Now, this is the kind of situation where the Comet, also at tier 7, excels. The difference between the Comet and the T20 is the Comet's got that bouncy gun mantlet, but the Comet needs the bouncy gun mantlet because the Comet doesn't have the alpha damage that the T20 does. Instead, the Comet has to sit there and keep firing. The T20 can't afford to do that because it's got a lousy gun mantlet and a weak turret, but it doesn't need to do that because it's got 240 alpha damage. Instead, the T20 sits here, lurking, lying in wait, takes the shot, pulls back, relocates, pops up from somewhere else, and repeats the process, whereas the Comet can afford, in this kind of situation, to just sit here and take the hits, because it's got the gun mantlet that the T20 doesn't. As luck would have it, however, well, it's academic, because I managed to pick the one time I've gotten on the Sigfried map in assault mode, and there's nobody at the other end of this road, so it looks like there's plenty of action going on over here to the north. And, well, there's certainly nobody down that end of the road, so I should be able to get over here quite safely. See what we can do from this position. And, oh, I've got the side of a Cromwell. This should be fun. And it bounces. Seriously? 160 millimeters of penetration on a Cromwell? Well, it looks like he's been tracked. He's just gotten his tracks back up. My second shot does not miss. That Cromwell's now on half health. Somebody else took a shot at me, but with the 20 km/h reverse speed and the good power to weight ratio, I was able to pull back into cover and not to take a hit. But that Cromwell, he's coming for some revenge. Now, bear in mind, the Cromwell's on half health. Watch this. This is the kind of trouble you can get into, even against lower tier medium tanks, if you get into a knife fight in the T20. He's hit me twice, I've hit him once, and he's dead. Now, bear in mind, I got the first shot off because I saw him coming around behind me, but in the time it took me to reload this 90mm gun, he got 3 shots into me. If he'd been on full health coming around the corner, and bear in mind I'm a tier higher than him, I could have been in serious trouble. This is why you don't want to get involved in close range knife fights with other medium tanks in the T20 unless the odds are heavily stacked in your favour. And finally, as luck would have it, we finally have some enemy tanks to shoot at down this end of the road. Pull back. I need to... Okay, the IS-2 is obviously reloading. We're going to wait for him to fire. There it goes. Pop out, take the shot, take the kill. Careful, of course, not to lumber in front of the IS-2's gun as he's about to fire, because getting shot in the back of the turret behind that guy's gun would definitely ruin my day. But that's why you want the vertical stabiliser on the T20 if you're going to play it as an outflanking attack tank. The vertical stabiliser in combination with a 2.2 second aim time means that you can make snapshots like that on the move and pull back without taking any return fire, which is something that you need to avoid at all costs when you're driving a tank with armour as bad as this. And there are not that many enemy tanks left, so it's time to put the pedal to the metal and find something that has some health, not him. And oh, there we go, an AFK heavy, fantastic. We're going to farm some damage on this guy and hopefully get as much bang for the buck as we can possibly get out of him before the rest of the team turn up and dive into the feeding frenzy. Oh no, other people have spotted him. I should be able to get one more shot. Might not kill him, but I'll at least get my full value out of the damage potential of the shell. Next, enemy M6. M6 also has this 90mm gun. Despite the fact that he's a tier lower than me, he actually has a better reload on it. And I'm never going to pull back in time. I'm just going to have to take the hit on the chin, get in there, get some more shots in just as the wolf packs come screaming around the corner, and this guy doesn't know whether to shit or go blind. And go looking for our next victim. So, I go looking for the 2 enemy artillery, but I, in fact, we're pinging the map furiously saying, artillery's over here, and alright, I'm going. Artillery isn't over there. They're right in the other corner of the map. So that was pretty much it for this assault on the Sigfried line. This battle did not last very long at all. It was quick, dirty and violent. Our team completely overwhelmed the enemy, and I really had to fight to get any damage done. Nevertheless, I was quite pleased with the results, considering it was the first time I'd ever taken the T20 out in, well, something like 4 years. But that's enough of me. What can you guys do in the T20? Surprisingly, for something that's generally considered to probably be the best of the Tier 7 medium tanks, there were very, very few T20 replays that you guys had submitted. Right now I've got something like 5,000 unread emails in my inbox, and when I filtered the search results to include the term T20, only 5 of them contain T20 replays, and this one's the best of the bunch. This is, how do you, I swear people come up with these names just so they can laugh at me on YouTube as I attempt to pronounce them. I mean, I'm not even going to try. This is Dave. Dave gets around a lot, doesn't he? Today, Dave's in a T20. He's here on the Sacred Valley map, and it's, again, very favourable matchmaking. Tier 7 maximum game. There are quite a few Tier 7 tanks on both teams, but there are not that many Tier 6s, and there's an awful lot of Tier 5s to be crushed beneath Dave's booted heel, or given a good spanking and sent packing to their mummies after getting smacked in the face with the power of this 90mm M3 gun. Despite having a slow start as he loaded into the game, he manages to make it up to the top of the monastery well ahead of everybody else on the rest of his team, and arrives just in time to witness, if not participate in, the utter humiliation of a T25 AT who manages to get himself comprehensively spanked coming up the road to the other side of the top of the monastery with like 30 seconds of the game elapsed. I really hope for his sake that this doesn't end up being his first win of the day, because while that would be hilarious, it would also be quite tragic. Here comes the ELC AMX. Now, this guy is not the sharpest tool in the box. There's a TOG 2 been spotted, labouring up the hill there, behind the wreck of the T25 AT. Observe how the ELC attempts to angle his armour against the TOG 2. But it's, well, it's not so much the TOG 2 that he should be worried about. There they are. It's the hidden tank destroyers at the other end of the road camping the ridgeline overlooking the enemy base, who are shooting at the targets that have been spotted by the TOG 2 and the enemy artillery. So that one didn't work out too well for the ELC. Now pay attention, because it was actually an SU-100 who killed the ELC, despite the fact that we can see an SU-152 down there. So there's more than one tank destroyer and the enemy artillery all casting their beady eyes in this direction, just waiting for something like, oh, I don't know, an AMX-12T to pop up. And don't do it, AMX! Oh, too late. However, with the TOG dead, Dave should no longer be spotted, so he stops to take a shot at that SU-100 who just revealed himself by firing. Unfortunately, well, looks like he probably hit the gun mantlet because no damage, and then he does get spotted. So, already aware that artillery are doing their level best to end him, he pulls back to a position that should be relatively safe until he's absolutely sure he's not spotted anymore. And now it's time to consider your options. He's probably not going to get very far driving down that road into the enemy base, not with, well, we know there's an SU-152 and an SU-100, and if they both hit him, he's just dead. There's no question about it. Also, they're starting to hemorrhage tanks, and it's all happening over at the other end of the map, which probably means that the base is about to come under attack. So he decides, screw this, let's head back, and oh crap, I'm spotted. Keep moving, keep moving, keep moving, keep moving, almost in cover, almost in cover, almost in cover, and that looks like we're going to live. Okay. And the base is definitely under some serious pressure here. The enemy team are winning on kills, although not by much. So, having fought his way all up to the top of the monastery, gotten himself a kill on the TOG 2, it's time to head back and assist the team in defending the base. Temptation in this kind of circumstance is to sit on top of the ridge and play the sniper role. Unfortunately, most of those enemy tanks have got hard cover between him and them, which means that most of those friendly tanks would be dead before Dave was actually able to start shooting, and so instead he decides to close in and goes after the T-37. Now his first shot misses, and this thing has a almost 8-second reload. Going after the E-25. E-25 scores a hit, second shot misses. He's using auto aim here while trying to steer through the buildings. T-37 slows down considerably while driving right through the building, and he's so close now that the auto-aim is not going to miss. Sets an engine fire, it's going to take another shot. Oh dear, the T-37 miscalculated that one, and there's his second kill. Unfortunately, there's only 3 tanks left alive on his team at this point. Friendly Panther up there on very low health. FV-304 miles away, too far away to support. The Panther is a one-shot kill for the Su-12244. And while you want to stick together with the rest of your team, when you're in a situation like this, you don't want to just reinforce failure. And there we go, the Panther's dead. Dave would have been next, particularly since the Su-12244 isn't operating alone. He's got a Chaffee backing him up. Now, you could take your chances against an Su-12244 in the T-20. Perhaps take the first shot on the chin and then attempt to outmaneuver him. Not easy. That thing is based on the chassis of a T-44 and is a very manoeuvrable tank destroyer, but with a Chaffee backing him up, no chance. Oh, and they've just killed the FV-304 as well. So Dave is now all alone against 7 enemies. So this should be fun. And no, they're not trying to cap. This is in fact a no cap kill all situation for the enemy team. And you can certainly understand that. It is 7 against 1 after all. But this is Dave. Dave's in a T-20. He's hoping to ambush that T-25 too, because he was last seen heading around the side of the fort in this direction, and taking out enemy guns as quickly as possible is the name of the game. There he is. It's one shot. He has been spotted. He needs to finish this guy off quick, take his gun out of the game before the rest of the team arrive and swarm him. T-25-2 stops behind the rock in order to turn his turret in this direction. Come on, come on, come on, pop out, take the chance. Bang, got him. Oh, surprise Chappie suddenly appears and decides to ram himself to death. But he's brought a friend, T-43, and it's the battle of the Tier 7 mediums. First blood goes to Dave. T-43 scores a hit. And now they're jousting around the corpse of this Chaffee. Dave gets the second shot off at about the same time as the T-43, but the T-43 shot bounces off the T-20's arse. Miracles are in fact possible, and now the T-43 is a one-shot kill, and Dave kills him. 4 enemy tanks left, and it looks like at least one of them has decided, screw you guys, I'm not going anywhere near that maniac in the T-20, I'm going to cap. So Dave's hands are tied here, he has to react to it, and that's when he finds the Su-12244, which is incredibly bad news for the Su-12244. Now you'll note that at no point during that very short, violent and brutal engagement did Dave take any artillery fire. Which probably means that the M44 is still sitting on his arse back in the base and has barely moved from the spawn since the match began. Dave was completely safe from artillery fire all the way through that fight. Or it's possible that the M44 is the one who's capping, and that would be the preferable option, because if it's not the M44 then it's the Su-152 or the Su-100. And yeah, either of those can one-shot him. Although the Su-100 with the 122mm gun would have to score a high damage roll, it's not impossible. And it's the Su-100. Ah, crap. Dave fires on the move. Su-100 fires while stationary. Dave hits. The Su-100 doesn't. Dave has to close the distance here and get around this guy. His second shot, again, just like the first shot when he was on top of the monastery, bounces off the Su-100's gun mantlet. And I do not know why the Su-100 didn't fire. Possibly he's got a damaged loader, a damaged ammo rack. There's the enemy artillery. But that really wasn't difficult at all, was it? Oh well. 5 down. 2 to go. Unfortunately, one of them's an Su-152, and that thing's got a seriously big howitzer. When you're driving a tank with as terrible armour as the T-20, the last thing that you want to happen is to drive around a corner and find an Su-152 sitting in front of you with that 152mm gun. That's a serious brown alert moment. That's fresh trousers for table 2 every time. And so, of course, as luck would have it, that's pretty much exactly what happens. And Dave shits himself round about right now. But then again, I think the Su-152 must have soiled his trousers as well, because they both miss each other. Now, what's the reload like on that howitzer? That's what we want to know. Come on, Dave, get around him. And it looks for a moment here as if the Su-152 is having some kind of epileptic seizure. But then he finally gets all of his shit in one sock and starts doing the right thing. And this is really, really close. There we go. 240 average damage. One more hit should be enough to kill this guy. And so naturally, it's a low damage roll. And then the M44 almost team kills the SU-152, but succeeds in blowing off Dave's tracks, which gives the SU-152 the chance it needs to end the match. All because of a low damage roll from that 90mm gun. There it is, ace tanker, Confederate, high caliber, Top Gun, one kill short of a Radley Walters medal and what would have almost certainly been a Collar Banoff's medal. Never mind Dave, it might have been a defeat, but you're a winner in our hearts and minds and that's where it counts. Also, chicks dig scars and glory lasts forever. And that, folks, is the T-20 Tier 7 American medium tank, the original and the best. I really underestimated this tank when I first got my hands on it, what must have been 4 years ago. But I was a noob. I had barely 2,000 battles under my belt. I knew nothing. Several quite prominent members of the wargaming community would argue that I'm still a noob and I still know nothing, and to them I say, well, okay, you make a good point. but the T-20 is still a good tank. You won't regret it, and it does lead to bigger and better things. The M26 Pershing at Tier 8, which is absolutely fantastic. The M46 pattern at Tier 9, which is fantastic, and the M48 pattern at Tier 10, which isn't the gloriously overpowered mobile death machine that it used to be after it was introduced into World of Tanks, but it's still a pretty capable Tier 10 medium as well. You know, something that isn't Soviet. So, the T-20. I've really enjoyed doing this video, and yeah, it's been a long time since I did a World of Tanks tank review of something that Wargaming weren't desperately trying to foist onto the premium gift shop in the immediate future, and I'll definitely be doing more of them in future. It's been a lot of fun. In the meantime, folks, enjoy your weekend, take care, and I'll catch you next time.